Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff.
Sorry to take so much time in the fact-checking business today, but Marco Rubio, as a United States senator, wrote the most scathing and detailed report of Donald Trump's ties to Vladimir Putin's Russia when he was on the Senate Intelligence Committee. But those are just little facts. Let me add to our conversation Chris Marr. He served as the assistant to the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, for Public Affairs. He traveled twice to Ukraine with the Biden administration. Stay with us for 1 second. I want to pull Michael Crowley back into this. Michael Crowley, there is an interesting new clarity, is the word that Alex has used, that I think matters very much to the American people. A lot of voters understand the American system to have all these checks and balances with it. And Democrats and Republicans who hold office at every level, branches of government that can check any one against the other, and a cabinet. And the idea that anyone like General Kelly, who was a big check on Trump's instincts when he started calling North Korea's leader a little rocket man before they became pen pals and exchanged love letters. There's nobody like General Kelly in this cabinet. The idea that there would be anyone like a General Mattis who would never lead the Pentagon to do anything illegal. We've been told as a public that that will never happen again because they fired all of their JAGs, all their legal advisors. How does the world process today's events absent Trump 1.0 guardrails like honorable men like Jim Mattis and General Kelly?
Excuse me, Nicole, that's a critical point. And, you know, I think that people are understanding now what it looks like when you have Trump, who is not boxed in to some degree, as he was in his first term, by people with mainstream views who don't see constant disruption as a benefit. And instead of being boxed in, he is empowered. And he has, you know, learned from his experience in the first term. When he came to office in 2017, I think he was, you know, potentially a little intimidated. He didn't really know that much about how Washington worked, how the government worked. So he wanted to bring in people who had loads of experience, who he felt could advise him and guide him and keep him from making big mistakes. And I think what he realized was, no, actually, those people just got in my way, and I can do this on my own. And actually, I'm more right than all these other people that have been in Washington forever. So what he has done now is chosen people who are not going to challenge him. And so there's very no real evidence of any pushback from his top advisors. Now, you do have a couple of people in Rubio and Waltz, his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, who do have long records of being extremely hawkish toward Russia, very critical of Vladimir Putin, very supportive of Ukraine. The question is it possible that they are trying to do things behind the scenes, or have they changed their views, or have they essentially thrown their hands up and said, there's nothing you can do with this president. I'm just going to, you know, try to manage my portfolio, and it's an interesting job, but I'm basically going to take orders from the president. There's not much evidence they're doing anything other than that.
I mean, let me just follow up on something John Bolton said with you, Michael Crowley. I mean, he said that Marco Rubio should resign because it's not the first month of Trump's presidency, it's the 50th. Marco Rubio, we could have played, there's an image of him today in the Oval Office. I'm not a body language expert, but he doesn't look joyful or proud. But what do I know? But he did, again, as a United States senator and as a candidate for the office Trump now holds, stake out ground as a hawk on Russia, as a defender of Ukraine. Some of his harshest critiques of Democrats were for not doing enough to stand up to Vladimir Putin. And he is now the Secretary of State for a country capitulating to Russia in an unbelievable display of weakness. Any rumblings that people think Marco Rubio should not be a part of this?
Well, certainly rumblings that people who have known and worked with Rubio for a long time are disappointed in him and don't understand. I had somebody say to me privately that they don't know how he can look in the mirror. This was somebody who has worked Russia issues for a long time and, knows that he has a record of saying that Putin is a killer. He's bloodthirsty. I believe he called him a monster. Yes, indeed, he criticized the Biden administration early after the Russian invasion for not doing more to support Ukraine and said that we should stay with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Has taken a hard line on making any concessions to Putin. And in fact, Nicole, as I wrote in a story just on this exact topic several days ago, warned during President Trump's first term when Trump was meeting with Vladimir Putin and reaching out to him, warned publicly when Rubio was a senator, negotiating with Russia is an inherently bad idea, risky thing to do because Vladimir Putin sees a zero-sum game where as America gets weaker, Russia gets stronger. So Vladimir, you can't do a deal with Vladimir Putin that's going to be win-win or that's going to be good for America. This was Rubio's position, basically. You can't negotiate with this guy. So what does he do? Does he feel like he can try to convince Trump to draw some lines behind the scenes? I think that's the big question.
Chris, the view from the Pentagon is today what?
It's a good question. I think, on more than one occasion over the past month during this administration, I've sort of quipped that today is a good day for adversaries like China and Russia, and they're celebrating what's happening in the United States. Well, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Russia is literally celebrating what's happening in the United States today. What you witnessed earlier in the Oval Office was embarrassing. To treat a country that is literally fighting for its existence is disgusting. American leadership in this world is what holds the world together. It's what makes the United States of America acceptable. And we have to choose if we're going to stand up with our allies and partners and defend democracy and our values, or whether we're going to stand up to dictators like Vladimir Putin. It's hard to tell where we are with that. It seems like President Trump and now Vice President J.D. Vance are on the side of Vladimir Putin, and that's as simple as I could put it.
Chris, I remember coming on the air after the atrocities of Bucha were first revealed to folks at the Pentagon and inside the U.S. government and eventually through the press to the public. And then I remember a news cycle days later when we learned that Putin had summoned those Russian soldiers who shot civilians in the head and tortured people in front of their children and other atrocious war crimes, that those soldiers were summoned back to Moscow for recognition and celebration and awards. Do you think that that the events that come next will showcase that sort of brutality if Russia is given the imprimatur of America's approval of massacres like what took place in Bucha?
Nicole, to your point, Vladimir Putin has shown us over and over and over again who he is and what he's all about. And I think Donald Trump very clearly laid out his belief that Vladimir Putin had his back during impeachment. And that's what it's all about for Donald Trump. I think it's worth, this has been worth something to support Ukraine for the United States. Because the United States has invested in Ukraine's fight for its freedom, Russia's military is nowhere near where it was 3 years ago. Putin's capabilities have taken a tremendous hit. He's had to isolate himself on the world stage, relying on people like Iran and North Korea to supplement them with weapons and with manpower. Putin is actually hurting in this instance, and yet we now, as a United States government, are turning to him and helping him.